So as everyone who owns a television knows, I'm not sure that included perhaps John today. Today's the 50th anniversary of the assassination of JFK. And you don't need us to show you stuff that the TV networks are going overboard on coverage. But nonetheless, in this massive age of information, we thought it would be interesting to take a look at what it was like then to experience this incredibly traumatic piece of news, the way many Americans, not all, but many Americans who were watching television or listened to the radio experienced it. JR and I watched a number of broadcasts, some on radio. Today we looked at ABC, we looked at NBC. We've chosen some of CBS, which cut into their programming of As the World Turns at 1 p.m. Central Time when JFK was pronounced dead. This obviously, the breaking news happened about half an hour, more or less, before that, as millions of people were watching the soap opera, As the World Turns. This is how it looked for people watching CBS.
And I thought about it, and I gave it a great deal of thought, Grandpa.
Here is a bulletin from CBS News. In Dallas, Texas, 3 shots were fired at President Kennedy's motorcade in downtown Dallas. The first reports say that President Kennedy has been seriously wounded by this shooting. More details just arrived. These details about the same as previously. President Kennedy shot today just as his motorcade left downtown Dallas. Mrs. Kennedy jumped up and grabbed Mr. Kennedy. She called, "Oh no," the motorcade sped on. United Press says that the wounds for President Kennedy perhaps could be fatal.
So you get that in the middle of watching your soap opera. You can't go to the internet. You can't call anyone who has any more information than that. That's all there is. So CBS tosses back to regularly scheduled programming. And what comes up next, and just think about this, is a coffee commercial. And imagine all these millions of Americans getting this piece of incredibly traumatic news and then watching this.
Stay tuned to CBS News for further details.
It takes more than an instant to make a real cup of coffee. That's why Nescafe has come up with a new kind of coffee. It's more than an instant. It's new minute brewed Nescafe. Anybody can make a coffee.
So that commercial, which by the way is like 4 minutes long. I mean, they were really
longer than it takes to make the coffee.
Totally. You could have made the coffee, you could have finished the coffee by the time that ad finished. I don't know, somehow that struck me, that part of that inability to get more information about something which you instantly desire more information. The most important thing that, I mean, we hear Jackie Kennedy jumping up and saying, "Oh no, we'll be back later." You know, not that that was a great job, that's all they could do.
So we only have that one footage of it, the Zapruder film, of course, because he happened to have gotten his 8mm camera, and he wanted to test it out. And,
right.
And he went out there and he liked JFK and he wanted to see if he can get him on tape. Today, everybody we would have had 17 minimum cell phone footage of that.
That's
right? And the tweets from there would have been unbelievable. So it's interesting because it relates to, of course, one of the most talked about things in the Kennedy killing, which is the conspiracy theories, right? They call them conspiracy theories. Look, I don't know what to believe. I don't have the definitive answer, but I would be shocked out of my mind if Lee Harvey Oswald was the lone killer. Okay, absolutely stone cold shocked if that was the reality. Okay, yeah. I don't know what the answer is, but back then, if you were going to pull off something, you only had Zapruder to worry about, and you didn't even know Zapruder was going to be out there, right? Today, good luck to you, brother, right? That's why to me, the Alex Jones of the world are a little kooky, because like, how are you going to pull off a conspiracy where everyone is recording everything at all times?
Well, that's part of it. Now, I got to tell you, as the only person here who remembers the Kennedy assassination, I was a school kid. I was a little kid, homesick from school, probably faking, actually, just to not go to school.
Right.
Lifestyle already formed. And I was watching cartoons. And they broke in with that same graphic, the CBS News, so it must have been a CBS affiliate. And I told my mother, and she's, oh no, you misunderstood. I mean, nobody could believe. Remember, in 1963, nothing bad had happened to this country for a generation.
Yeah,
so nobody, no wait, and Kennedy was a symbol of optimism and youth and power, and it was the American century. No. We don't get killed. We're Americans. All right?
Kill.
We kill. No, basically, yeah.
Right.
And then it's exactly what you were saying, which is then you got to wait 10 minutes for another news update, and it's Nescafe commercials and it's cartoons, or it's
And they go back to the soap opera.
and you
It's-
don't know what's going on, and you're watching, waiting for the next update, wondering what's going on here.
Well-
and I think it might have something to do with the instant need for answers too, that led to some of the more outlandish conspiracy theories. Because even if Lee Harvey Oswald didn't do it, there were a lot of theories floating around instantly, because you didn't have access to any information. You had to fill in the blanks yourself.
You had to wait for the paper.
Yeah.
You know? I mean, because of course millions of people didn't have television.
Right.
You
And
know?
then the insane thing was Jack Ruby shooting him on live television.
Yeah.
That was insane.
Yeah, that's,
Yeah, so I mean that goes to it's two things off that real quick. Number one, I was saying the same thing. Of course, at that point, King hasn't been killed, RFK hasn't been killed,
Right.
and
Malcolm X.
by the time Reagan gets shot, and I'm a kid watching the soap operas, and the soap opera gets interrupted, we're used to people being shot at that point. I mean, it's terrible.
Right.
When JFK got shot, it was like a unbelievable shock to the country.
And not just the country, which we'll get to later, but also the world. But you talked about you watch the commercial or the cartoons or whatever as the world turns, and you wait for that next update. We have another radio update with more details later. Again, imagine that this is the only place you're getting this information.
And now, here is a bulletin from CBS News. Further details on an assassination attempt against President Kennedy in Dallas, Texas. President Kennedy was shot as he drove from Dallas Airport to downtown Dallas. Governor Connolly of Texas in the car with him was also shot. It is reported that 3 bullets rang out. A Secret Service man was heard to shout from the car, "He's dead." Whether he referred to President Kennedy or not is not yet known. The president, cradled in the arms of his wife, Mrs. Kennedy, was carried to an ambulance, and the car rushed to Parkland Hospital outside Dallas. The president was taken to an emergency room in the hospital. Other White House officials were in doubt in the corridors of the hospital as to the condition of President Kennedy.
So that was, again, Walter Cronkite cutting in, a little breathless. You know, these incredible details that I didn't know. One, that of Jackie, Cronkite reporting of Jackie saying, oh God, and then the Secret Service agent saying he's dead. Then the last clip we have for you is what millions of people have already seen by this point, but we did think we would share it with you when finally they got video established there at CBS News headquarters in New York. Walter Cronkite making the announcement about a half an hour, 35 minutes after the president was declared dead.
From Dallas, Texas, the flash, apparently official, President Kennedy died at 1 p.m. Central Standard Time, 2 o'clock Eastern Standard Time, some 38 minutes ago. Vice President Lyndon Johnson has left the hospital in Dallas, but we do not know to where he has proceeded. Presumably, he will be taking the oath of office shortly and become the 36th President of the United States.
I nearly teared up watching it.
Yeah.
It's so powerful. And it was, as Richard said, the hopes and dreams of so many people, resided in JFK, and it was the day the bad guys won.
Let me read, coincidentally, today in the New York Times, my father is one of the people quoted who, just people who remember where they were. But there's one thing in here in my dad's story that is incredibly telling about the impact around the world. So my father, who was at that point, it says, by November 1963, I'd been in Peru for nearly 2 years as the director of the Peace Corps program there. On November 22nd, I was in Arequipa, Peru's second largest city, visiting a project involving urban community development. My dad said he was walking along the street around midday, saw people huddling in crowds on the sidewalk, some loud shouts. My dad says he then passed a man who was weeping. He asked the man if he knew what had happened. And the man told my father in Spanish, "The president has been shot. He may be dead." I asked if he meant Peru's president, Fernando Balunde Terry. And he replied through his tears, "Ojalá que sí. I wish it were."
Wow.
And then, went to the office and met with the other Peace Corps volunteers. But I mean, amazing that in Peru that this was the president of the Americas.
So obviously I was not there. I have no personal memories of it. I've read about Kennedy. I've watched his old tapes, especially in the run up to the anniversary. And we were talking in the studio earlier, why is it that 50 years later, this is still so significant that we devote like a week of coverage to it, that it's such a big thing when other people have been assassinated in America's history. And from what you were saying, and maybe the context at the time was somewhat different. I mean, you weren't politically sophisticated at that time.
You're talking about RJ.
Exactly. Well, that's a good point, actually. Him and Michael knew what was going on.
I had more of a leftist critique of JFK at the time, I would say.
So, but it seems like, in a sort of sad or weird way, it's good to look back on a time when we could lose a president and the entire country is harmed by that. The entire country grieves about that. And maybe I'm being cynical and I don't understand what the political context was like back then, but I have to imagine that if it were to happen today, if we lost our president in a shooting, would 30% of the country cheer? Would 45% of the country celebrate?
It's not fun to think about. It is important to remember contextually that one reason why JFK went to Dallas was because there was such vehement anger at the United Nations in Dallas, which was a Democratic state at the time in the South, as many states were then. But Dallas was a very right-wing, very, very right-wing city. It is no wonder that this happened there. And Adlai Stevenson, who was twice run for president on the Democratic ticket and was then the Kennedy's UN ambassador, had horrible things shouted at him and had been assaulted with people yelling at him, who elected you? So already this sort of, this angry right-wing fervor, which has ebbed and flowed and appears to be ebbing again, but it certainly, that existed then.
Yeah, and look, it's bipartisan too. I mean, if something had happened to Dick Cheney, I'm not sure that a lot of liberals would have had the same mourning that the country had for JFK, as an example, right?
But I also, if I may just jump in for a second, I also think, to your point, that JFK, not just in this country, but globally, was a symbol that went way beyond what his actual policies and positions were. You could go, when I was in South America a few years later, you could go into a hovel in Venezuela in the mountains somewhere, and there would be 3 pictures in every one. There would be Jesus, there'd be Che Guevara, and there'd be John F. Kennedy. Now, politically, that's a pretty broad span.
Sometimes the Pope.
Sometimes more, well, Pope John, but not afterwards. And so that's a pretty broad span, but that shows you how broad his symbolic meaning was to people at the time.
That's interesting, because all 3 of those liberals, right?
Yeah, right? Absolutely. Yeah.
And there's good reason for that, because they all, were perceived, if you disagree with them, I'll say they were perceived to stand on the side of the people, right? And that's why the people put their pictures up. So the significance of that day 50 years ago is, to some degree, as a lot of people perceived the day John Lennon got shot, was that a piece of hope died that day. Right. So it wasn't just a man. It was a little piece of hope in all of us that died that day.